It's Oscar season! More importantly, it's complaining about the Oscars season! Hello my friends and welcome back to the Owen channel. Now, I know that you go about your daily lives wondering, I like the Oscars, but what does a extremely mid-tier YouTuber think about them? Specifically, what would his top 10 ranking of the Best Picture nominees be? Well, search no further, because you found the video that will make you finally want to do it. I also do want to point out that this is my first ever unscripted video. If you want to see my scripted videos, please feel free to click. They're either there or maybe there's some around here. Maybe they're just in the ether. Maybe the real videos were the friends we made along the way. I should cut this out. That's right, today I'm going to give my top 10 rankings of all the Best Picture nominees at the Oscars this year. I'm going to give you my thoughts, my opinions, the right way to think. If you agree with me, put it in the comments. If you disagree with me, put it up your arse. If you like what you see, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You can also, if future Owen has bothered to set it up, click that little join button down next to the subscribe button and you can join my YouTube members as well. It's all the same perks as are on the Patreon, but just on YouTube, so you don't have to go all the way to another website. I know you're tired. I like to make things convenient for you. Without further ado, let's get started. My friends, the Oscars. Okay, number 10, to the surprise of absolutely no one, we do in fact have Maestro, but I want to follow this up by saying you guys are way too mean to Bradley Cooper. It's a well-directed film. The choice to wear a big nose to portray a Jewish man when you are not a Jewish man was a choice I'm not going to defend. Bradley, look at me, Bradley. You know that's weird. But aside from this, I feel like a lot of filmmakers, when they pick to do something in black and white, it's very like, they want to be artsy, you know, they want to be, ooh, I'm an auteur, so we're going to put it in 4:3 and black and white, and everyone's going to, I lost my train of thought, but you know what I mean. But here it was like clearly a conscious choice, and he really just knows how to shoot for it. I don't even know how to like tangentially describe it, but you can tell when someone's actually using 4:3 black and white. And it's creatively, they want to say something with it, you know what I mean? Again, following on from that, it feels like a lot of biopics are just kind of jerking off the subject and then filming their Wikipedia page. But Bradley clearly had something to say about the relationship between Bernstein and his wife, who I have completely forgotten the name of. That's -1 feminism point for me. I've seen like a lot of people say that they kind of felt a bit like caricatures, but as someone who again knows absolutely jack shit about Bernstein and his wife outside of this movie and Tar and I guess West Side Story, to me they felt like actual characters. They felt like, again, there was something to say about the relationship there. I felt that it could have been shorter without losing a whole lot, and some of it, I said that most of it does have something to say. Some of it did go a little bit far into kind of being a bit of a vanity project. It very much felt like there were scenes in this where Bradley was a bit, it's almost like he knew that there was going to be something used for his Best Actor nominee clip, and he was like consciously trying for that. This is ultimately one of the ones that will be forgotten about like the second the ceremony is over. I think it's only going to be mentioned again when Bradley Cooper does eventually win Best Director, which I think he's on track to do. Again, he's a good director. You got A Star Is Born, and then you got this. Like, that's a good, like, for your first ever directorial effort is A Star Is Born. That was like a really good movie. I don't care. Fight me. Come fight me over it. Here's my full address and IP. I don't know. I think it's worth your time. It's a decent movie. Don't rush out and get a Netflix subscription for it. Don't rush out and get a Netflix subscription for anything, mind you. So at number 9, and I really want to preface this by saying that I think this is the strongest year for Best Picture since at least 2020, if not before. And every movie from 9 to 1 on this list, I would be more than happy with it winning. I think it's such a strong crop. And I am saying this so I don't get too many death threats in the comments. With that said, number 9 is Killers of the Flower Moon. I will be hiding my IP, thank you. Is Martin Scorsese the best living director we have? I'm not American. They have. Them. Our best living director is... Oh, they're all dead, aren't they? Anyway, back to Marty. The fact that he has just so many good movies over so many. I think we need to like take stock for a second. He's been directing since like 1968, I think was his first film. It was late 60s. Every single decade he's got banger after banger after banger. I desperately wanted to do more comedies. I need another King of Comedy. I need another After Hours. But his late period where he kind of like reflects on all the stuff that he's been doing. I talked about this a little bit in my Wes Anderson video. The fact that all of his movies are so self-reflective, they're so introspective. I'm just saying synonyms at the moment, but they all feel like they're revisiting themes of violence, greed that he's done in the past, but with kind of a more sober tone. He's really like interrogating himself, and I think for a guy who's 81, that's really impressive. Anyway, we have to talk about the discourse now. So Emma Stone won the BAFTA for Best Actress. Lily Gladstone wasn't nominated. There's people online having fights about it. What's new? What I've seen, the stupidest thing that I have seen come out of it is people framing it as like a dichotomy of like, oh, Emma Stone gave the best performance, but she's white, so we have to give it to Lily Gladstone because that would be the diversity win. It would also be the talent win. What the fuck are you talking about? Did Lily Gladstone give a better performance than Emma Stone? Who cares? Sandra Hüller beat out both of them, to be honest. But to say that Lily Gladstone gave even anything less than like an incredible performance. I've seen people say that like all she does is like stare blankly in this movie. Did you watch? I get that it's like 3.5 hours, but did you actually watch it? There's like a whole scene where she's like screaming and wailing her heart out because she just learned that the last of her family was murdered. Like, let's not be silly now. And then also you've got Leo DiCaprio continues to make the most interesting choices in his dating life, yes, but in his film career, I feel like so many kind of late period movie stars like him would be taking roles that aren't so pathetic, and I mean that in a good way. I mean that he's like really not afraid to make himself the most detestable scumbag in a lot of the movies he's in. Like, the guy he plays in this is a real piece of shit, as is De Niro, but De Niro's been playing pieces of shit since 1976, so like, that's nothing new. He's also really good. It's just, it's good performance after good performance, and then you think you can't have any more, and then Jesse Plemons walks in. Oh, have my children. This is a very good movie, and I want to say again that the fact that this is at number 9 on my ranking should not be, you know, oh, I didn't really like this. I really liked this movie. And the fact that I liked the other 8 nominees more, let that tell you something, my friends. Let that tell you something. Thank you to the Academy, who have famously never got anything wrong ever. Okay, and at number 8, we have The Holdovers. People are saying future Christmas classic. I'm inclined to agree. This one, like, sneaks up on you. Okay, now let's start with the fact. The guy who plays the kid in this, Dominic Sessa, his first ever movie. Are you fucking shitting my dick? He is so good in this. He plays wounded and bratty and emotional while also being incredibly standoffish. I think those things mean broadly the same thing, but you get what I'm getting at. And he does it all. He holds his own against Paul Giamatti and Joy Devine, who are both also incredible. It's like this very niche trio of these 3 actors, 3, count them, who are all playing extremely sad people. Because I think you see the marketing for this movie, and a lot of people I've spoken to have been like, Best Picture nominee? Really? It just looks like sort of, you know, a holiday movie, a nice cozy holiday movie that you go see with your parents, then forget about a week later. And that's kind of what I expected. I have not been able to stop thinking about it. It's one of the more straightforward nominees. There's no sort of like flash to it. It's very sort of slight and understated, but it does that so incredibly well. It knows that less is more, and sometimes all you need is just a good script and good performances and good direction, and it doesn't have to be about anything massive. It's a very personal story. As I say, this is one of the more depressing movies on the list, and there are some depressing movies on here, let me tell you. It would be a really interesting double bill with Past Lives, I think, which is later on this list, don't you worry. You got Paul Giamatti, who's thinking about what could have been. You got Dominic Sessa thinking about what's going to be, and then you got Joy Devine, who's kind of like in the middle a little bit. She's thinking about what could have been for her, but also what could have been for her son, and then what will be for her now that her son is gone. There's just so many, the layers to this. It's so deceptively easy. If it got a screenplay win, I wouldn't be mad. It's been holding me over. So at number 7, we have The Zone of Interest. I'm not even sure if I can like speak about the content of this one without violating the guidelines, or at least what, like, the event that it's about. If you don't know, it's about the guy in charge of one of the most notorious camps in history, surrounding one of the most notorious atrocities committed in the 20th century. But it doesn't show the actual atrocities. The guy's family lives in a very sort of idyllic cottage core house with a wall separating them from the camp. And so it really gets into the kind of banality of evil, because the main plot actually just concerns that this guy gets transferred elsewhere and his wife doesn't want to go. That's a big thrust of the main plot. And if you just describe it like that, that could be about anything, but it happens to be about this place. I saw this with a friend, and we both said that it left us feeling empty in, I don't want to say a good way, but, you know, just a lot to reflect on. I think part of that is the soundtrack. It is a great soundtrack. It's all kind of ambient, low noise. I think a big thematic thrust of this one is how you can delude yourself into what you're doing is perfectly fine and normal, and you're living an ordinary life, but there's always your soul kind of knows what you're doing. There's always that kind of background hum of, I think the ending, if you've seen it, you know what I mean, that the ending kind of shows that too, that you know what you're doing is evil. Even if it's just regular, like, you can delude yourself. Oh, people, they sign papers, they manage people every day, and that's what I'm doing. But your conscience knows, and it will come up in physical and mental ways, even as you try and kind of push it away. And again, this is at number 7. I don't want to throw around the word important too much, but this is an extremely important movie. And again, at number 7, what a year. Okay, and at number 6 we have American Fiction. There's no way to phrase this that doesn't sound backhanded. I promise it's not. This is the least flashy of the nominees. I talked a little bit about how The Holdovers was not a lot of flash and very straightforward. This is even more so. It's just a good, solid, like, comedy drama, a good, solid satire with good, solid performances. I'm glad it got a nomination. It's genuinely funny. It's one of the funnier movies on here. People have talked often about kind of like the death of the studio comedy, especially of movies that are like actually have like set up punchline, and aren't just kind of a vague mush of quips and people being kind of vaguely funny. This one has like actual jokes with setups and payoffs. Jeffrey Wright obviously good, but I think Sterling K. Brown is the especial standout. Yes, Sterling K. Brown is the especial standout of American Fiction. Every line he delivers, he just elevates and makes funnier. I think he's genuinely a really good case study in how to take already funny dialogue and make it funnier just by a look or a certain inflection. It's a skill, and like, he has it. Thank God he got a nomination. I think it's a lot more emotional than I was expecting to. The marketing pitched it as kind of like a very straightforward satire, but then they add in this element of his mum has dementia, and so that motivates him to pretend to be a different person than he is. I don't want to spoil the plot completely. Despite it being a satire about racism, essentially, it's very cozy. You know, out of all the movies about racism on here, it's definitely the coziest, but probably the only one approaching good vibes, and that's with the racism and also the mother with dementia subplot. The Oscars are always so cheery. Like I said, I think with a movie this straightforward, there's nothing more I can really say about one that is a satire that I agree with the core conceit of. Like, it is a big problem what is portrayed here, both in the UK and the US. I would really, really recommend checking it out. I think it will leave you with a relatively good feeling afterwards. Maybe that's just the white guilt euphoria. I don't know. Sterling K. Brown, if you're free on Friday, I am also free on Friday. If you are free on Friday... Oh, Lord, I just remembered what's at number 5. Give me a minute. Number 5 is Barbie. I just know there's a split in the comments right now from people who think I would put Barbie too high and from people who think I put Barbie too low. I just want to say to you all, I'm sorry. Cut that out. Cut that out. Nah, I swear to God, actually cut that. Editor, you there? Could we just get the receipts? The receipts, you know the ones I'm talking about. Let me get, I've seen Barbie 3 times. Let me get a 1, a 2, a 3 before people start accusing me of being some Greta hater. And, you know, just for good measure, let's get Ladybird watches in there. Let's get I forgot the name of Little Women for a second there. Oh, I'm actually getting, get the Little Women thing in there. I'm actually, you know what, I'm going to end it. Whatever, bro. I see it. Bye-bye. So with all that in mind, Greta and Margot were not snubbed. They are both still nominated. Margot as a producer in Best Film, Greta in Adapted Screenplay, which is where the Barbie screenplay belongs, by the way, not an original, but that's a whole different discourse. They are both still nominated in categories where they have the exact same likelihood to win. Look into my eyes. They are still just as likely to win as they were before. Also, the rest of the discourse, I'm sorry that this part has to be so dedicated to discourse, but I love to yell, so... I feel like over the summer, when the movie came out, a lot of people were complaining that the best parts of the movie were the I'm Just Ken specifically, and Ryan Gosling kind of stealing the show a little bit as Ken in the movie that's meant to be a big, like, feminist movie. But then you've also complained that the Academy has, like, nominated the best bits. Like, the bits that were talked about the most online was Ryan Gosling as Ken, I'm Just Ken, and America Ferrera's monologue. All of those got nominated. So if you're annoyed at the fact that, like, the best parts of the movie got nominated, you have an issue with two people specifically, Greta Gerwig and The Baumbach. Why did I call him The Baumbach? The Baumbach. I can't believe the whole set. I haven't even talked about the actual movie yet. I liked it. That's why it's on at number 5. That's why Editor, as a movie about feminism, yeah, it was fairly basic, but that's fine. I know some people were complaining about the America Ferrera monologue being like, oh, well, we already know this. But then I think to have that kind of monologue in a mainstream movie and not, you know, on the Tumblr dashboard is, like, it's genuinely a big thing. It may not be revolutionary to you, but for a lot of people it was. And so I think that's fine. You can critique it in other ways. It was kind of, I don't know, could have been, like, directed a little more interestingly, but that's really getting nitpicky. Can I, editor, please? But yeah, to be honest, I enjoyed it more as an absurdist comedy than, like, a big feminist movie. I just thought it was very funny. I thought, again, like I was saying before, the death of the studio comedy. We don't have a lot of comedies these days that are actually, like, set up punchline, and exist in this kind of absurdist world where Will Ferrell can say really stupid stuff, but really, like, earnestly, and that's the joke. That kind of airplane-y delivery, I guess. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, with all that said, it is Greta's weakest movie, but, like, oh, this Michelin star chef served me a steak that was only, like, slightly incredible. Like, fuck off, man. It's a good movie. I would be happy with it winning. It would be extremely funny. It would be so funny. There would be so many film Twitter accounts that would get so mad, and that is a lot of the time is a good thing. Movies suck. Number 4 is Past Lives. Here's what I thought about Past Lives. You want to talk about a snob? A snob? You want to talk about a snob? Let's talk about snob, baby. Let's talk about you and me. You want to talk about a snub? Greta Lee, Celine Song. How is she left out of Best Director? Because this could have been such a worse movie without that direction and without that script. Like, oh my god, the way they talk about it when they're like, oh, I'm the guy who comes in to steal you away from your husband and make you realize, like, that's genuinely what someone else would have done. It feels like they're kind of self-aware about that. Celine Song is a yearner. As a fellow yearner, I saw that Twitter post that said that men can't be yearners. Well, explain this then. I think people underestimate how hard it is to direct a movie that has a very slight plot like this. It definitely has the least going on plot-wise. Again, not a backhanded compliment, please. But just like The Holdovers, it's a movie that kind of flows over you in the moment. You sort of absorb it. At least when I watched it, I sort of appreciated it on a filmmaking level, on script structure level, on a performance level. I was like, yes, you know, that's very good. And then, like, half an hour later, I was like, the aforementioned. At the beginning, and when they circle back to the bit at the bar, and in the beginning, they zoom in on Greta Lee, and I cannot remember his name for the fucking life of me, but her, you know, her old childhood friend, and the husband slowly gets, like, kind of edged out of the frame. And then when they circle back to it, he's also, like, cut out. Like, they're sort of cutting between them, and eventually they just kind of cut between the two of them, and he gets almost completely left out. That's directing. That's directing. That's worthy of a nomination. Are you kidding me? With that said, I don't know who you would get out of there in favor of Celine Song, but someone's got to... Marty, I know I said, you know, greatest living director, but I'm afraid you might have to take the L on this one. Yeah, incredible stuff. I am ready to end it all. That has nothing to do with the movie. At number 3, we have Anatomy of a Fall. And it's there entirely because of the PIMP cover. Anyway, number 2. This 100% deserves to win Best Original. It's easily the tightest screenplay of any of the nominees. Again, a really straightforward premise. Like a court drama about, oh, did she murder her husband or not? This could be over the top in the hands of a lesser director, but Justine Triet, Academy Award nominee Justine Triet, Macron coping and seething, elevates the whole thing. She turns it into a whole kind of treatise on how trials are just stories, and does the truth really matter, or is it kind of just like something, does something have to be factually true to be true, or is it just kind of like the vibes have to be true? Like if something's broadly true, is that good enough? And Sandra Hüller, can we talk about Sandra Hüller for a moment? She speaks 3 languages in this movie and she kills every single one of them. She goes insane with all of them. I'm genuinely in awe. I don't want to say that necessarily she gave a better performance than Gladstone and Emma Stone, but I will heavily imply it. Sandra Hüller beat out both of them, to be honest. This is genuinely one of the nominees that had me on the edge of my seat. I was like genuinely like locked in to the outcome of this trial. Do I think she did it? Who knows? No, I'm gonna leave you with that. No, I don't think she did it. But I think that, again, I talked about stories. The fact that, at least in my opinion, the son has to make up a story that's not factually true, but emotionally true, just like with his mother's novels, to get her acquitted is such an interesting kind of accusation against the justice system. I think that's a really, really smart way to do it, especially with his words replacing the dad's words in the voiceover. C'est incroyable. That's not right, but I'll die before I speak correct French, so... Okay, number 2, we have Oppenheimer. I rewatched this. I hadn't seen this since July, and I rewatched it expecting to kind of not... Still think it was good, but not be as on the hype train as I was back in July, but... I've never even been that massive of a Nolan fan. I like Dark Knight because I'm a white male video essayist. Of course, I like Dark Knight. But this is the shortest 3-act movie of all time. Genuinely, it's so incredibly well paced. He took what could, again, in the hands of anyone else, this would just be like a filmed Wikipedia page. Like I talked about, Maestro could have also been. It would have been the most dull, by the numbers, here is every point of Oppenheimer's life laid out in front of us. Woo, what a weird guy. But Nolan uses his obsession with time on portraying like different aspects, jumping between different time frames to give us the straightforward kind of, this is Oppenheimer's early life, and then he hops into what Oppenheimer thinks of himself, and then what other people think of Oppenheimer with the black and white with the straws bits. And we get such a complex portrayal of a guy. Like, this is honestly like the gold standard for biopics. I think, depending on your definition of a biopic, probably the greatest of all time. Not to be too hyperbolic, but like, name a better one. I just have written here, if you think the third act drags, fuck you. Some people are saying that like after he detonates the big bomb for the first time, it falls off. You're a child. Sorry, that's mean. But the third act is the culmination of the whole thing. It's the ultimate condemnation and kind of final judgment of Oppenheimer as a guy who doomed the world because he thought that science could be non-political. He couldn't commit to anything. Again, Nolan feels like he actually has something to say about this guy, and it's pretty damning. For a biopic, it's pretty damning. I can't think of a lot of other biopics who kind of end with them going, this guy was kind of a piece of shit, actually. And just everyone's firing on all cylinders. I mean, who expected Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid to come in here and give a good performance? And Josh Peck, and to be honest, Robert Downey Jr., like, we know he can act, but he hasn't acted properly since Iron Man 3, maybe. He's definitely... I like the MCU. Okay, again, let's disclaimer here. I've seen all the MCU movies. I like them, but he's been phoning it in a little bit since after Iron Man 3. Let's be serious now. But he's back to it now, and he's gonna get Best Supporting Actor, and he deserves it. Thank you, Robert, for short kings everywhere. And number one, this is going to be a real big surprise for you guys. Real big surprise. What could number one be? Well, if you've been keeping track, it's Poor Things. It's Poor Things at number one. I would let Yorgos Lanthimos run over my firstborn child and then back the car over my secondborn and then fire my thirdborn out of a cannon into the sun. And it would probably win Best Picture. Folks, I just love weird movies. The Favourite is one of my favourite movies because it's so strange. That is a movie that is about a topic that could have been presented really boringly, but Yorgos does it in the strangest way possible, and he's done it again here. Everything from the production design to the set design to the VFX, it's so weird. There's such a singular vision to it, and that singular vision is, how strange can we make this movie? The answer, very strange, and I salute him for it. The way that Wes Anderson, not to mention Wes Anderson again, but the way that Wes Anderson got more and more confident as he went on, from Bottle Rocket to what he's doing now with Asteroid City. Please go watch the Asteroid City video. It didn't do very well. That's what Yorgos feels like he's doing now, with stranger and stranger sets and setups and performances. I mean, Emma Stone plays a woman with a toddler brain in this. And to bring it back to the discourse, once again, she gives a fantastic performance. Okay, I hate to break it to you, but sometimes two actresses both give incredible performances. Very different performances, but both very good. And how lucky we are to have them both. What can I say? I just love women. Hashtag male feminist. What if I shot myself? I felt, now don't jump me for this one either, but I felt that it had a more complex feminist message than Barbie. Remember, I already talked about how Barbie's message being simple does not mean it's bad. But I think that this had more to say about stuff like sex work, for example. I think there was a more nuanced examination there. And it is very funny to me that people were talking about Saltburn with the unnecessary sex discourse. I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe all the crazy shit that happened in Saltburn. Like, wow, that was the most insane movie I've ever seen in my life. And then Poor Things, where it's like Emma Stone is naked for like a good 40% of this movie and no one's talked about it. But yes, if this had to be the movie, if I was voting, thank God I'm not, because I would absolutely sabotage that shit. I would put like Morbius or something, or Madam Web. If I was voting, Poor Things for my number one. The final note that I have put here is Yorgos, have my children. Yeah, that's what I think of the Oscars. I mean, I already have mine here, as you can see. I won it for Atonement. And you know what? I just hope that everyone has a lot of fun and all goes home happy, and that someone else gets assaulted on stage this year. You know what? After having done this list, maybe the movies aren't so bad after all. Maybe some movies are good. If you like this video, again, please subscribe. Maybe consider joining the Patreon or the YouTube members. Leave a comment, leave a like, leave your worries at the door, my friends, because it's a party all night. And now I'm going to let this Oscar statuette whisper it in my ear the way that I will die, while VoiceOver Owen thanks all of our patrons. Thank you, On-Screen Owen, and thank you so much to all of my patrons for making this video possible. And an extra special thanks to Flames of James, Sam by Night, Fifi M, DJB13, NBeyond We, Ben Pope, Joj Matt, and Emma for subscribing at my highest tier. If you want to become a patron yourself, go to patreon.com/OWen or click the link in the description. Otherwise, thank you for watching and see you next time. Are you ready? I'm going to do the YouTuber thing that makes me seem really authentic, where, you know, I move the mic aside and I stand up and I turn off the camera, but there's still like a few seconds of audio against the black screen, and it makes me, you know, come across as more like I'm your friend, like in a kind of parasocial way, and you can sort of relate to me because, ooh, I'm so homemade and things like that. You ready? Okay, here we go. Thank you for watching. Yeah, that's how we do it.